Hello and welcome to a weekend news episode of the Leveraging AI podcast, the podcast that shares practical, ethical ways to improve efficiency, grow your business, and advance your career with AI. This is Isar Metis, your host, and this week we are going to talk a lot about OpenAI and more importantly about Sam Altman and his predictions of AI impacts on the near future. We're going to continue with that into the topic of impact of AI on jobs from several different sources. We're going to talk about the emotional bonds forming between people and AI. And we're going to talk about the AI news or the lack of AI news at Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference. And then there's a lot of exciting rapid fire items, many of them coming from OpenAI this week, who have made some very serious announcement and released. And there's some major news from Meta as well. So we have a lot to talk about. So let's get started. As I mentioned, we are going to start from Sam Altman's blog post. Sam has been releasing these blogs for a while now, every few months, and he's been revealing where he thinks the world is going. His latest blog post is called The Gentle Singularity, and he basically outlines where he thinks we are right now and where he thinks we're going. And the way I want to do this, which I think will be the most effective, is to give you several different quotes that I chose. And I'll explain first why I chose them, and then we're going to talk about why they're important. So the reason I chose these quotes is because I think they establish the following baselines. One, it establishes urgency. The other, it explains the current AI potential. Then it sets very concrete and clear timelines to what's coming in the near future. It highlights the exponential acceleration of AI. It anchors the future of humanity in AI values like empathy and AI's alignment to that. And it illustrates tangible connection to how AI currently impacts resources in the world, such as energy and water. So let's go through these quotes. I'll mention the importance of each and every one of them, and then I'll do a quick summary in the end. Quote number one, we are past the event horizon. The takeoff has started. What he basically means that we passed the point of no return in this trajectory to singularity. What he basically means is that we have passed the point of no return in the progress to AI that is continuously improving on a continuously accelerating scale, and there's no coming back. And if that comes from Sam, that is seeing the most advanced research done in the world today, you can assume that that's reality and not something that he thinks as wishful thinking. Quote number two, in some big sense, ChatGPT is already more powerful than any human who has ever lived. And we need to agree to that. And I'm going to connect this to something else that he said in an interview at the keynote of Snowflake. And we're going to go back to that interview afterwards. But over there, he was asked about AGI. And what he basically said that if anybody on Earth would have seen today's AI just at the day they launched ChatGPT, everybody would have called it AGI. And I agree with him, right? We had zero expectations. When ChatGPT came out at October of 2022, it was very, very basic. If anybody would have said that in 2 years it will do all the incredible things that it will do right now, we would have labeled it AGI. We just don't call it this right now. But what he's saying is that AGI doesn't matter. We are on this exponential curve, and it's going to keep on getting better and better. And the definitions are very fluid anyway. But what this immediate statement means is that you don't have to wait for AGI for it to have a very significant impact on humanity and on jobs and on society and so on, because it's already better than most humans at many, many different things. Think about just its ability to go through huge amounts of data and make sense in it and connect the dots and give a detailed summary and now take actions as well. In my company and companies that I train and companies that I help with consulting, we are now doing things in hours that used to take teams weeks. That shows you again that AI on those particular cases is better than any human who ever lived, which is what exactly Sam is saying. The third quote is maybe the most profound in this blog post, and it's the following. 2026 will likely see the arrival of systems that can figure out novel insights. 2027 may see the arrival of robots that can do tasks in the real world. This is next year. This is 6 months from now. He's saying that there's going to be an AI that can make new discoveries that humans did not discover before. That goes way beyond what we're seeing right now. He's also saying that in 2026, companies will be able to solve their biggest problems just by throwing more compute at it. So the AI will be smart enough and capable enough to solve problems that companies cannot solve today or that are extremely difficult to solve today on its own just by giving it access to more compute. That's next year. And when Sam is saying something next year, it means he's seeing it in the lab right now. The stuff that we are getting access to is usually 7, 8, 9 months old. So what they're going to release in 2026, they're already testing at OpenAI. And when he's saying that, he's not making wild predictions. He's basically sharing what he knows and not what he predicts. Now, to make it more extreme, the next quote is, in the 2030s, intelligence and energy, ideas, and the ability to make ideas happen are going to become wildly abundant. So what he's basically saying that within 5 years, which puts us in the 30s, or 4.5, if you really want to be more specific, the we'll be able to basically use AI to do anything we can imagine. And he's saying that will drift to other areas of our lives because AI will be able to create stuff, including more clean energy that we'll be able to use for wherever we want, such as creating more AI that will be able to create more things. So you see how this curve is not just impacting AI intelligence, it's going to impact everything. What this basically means is that we're going to see an age of innovation like we've never had the ability to see before. Now, this could obviously be used for good or bad, which is not stating, but it still means that's where we're going in the very near future. He's also talking about the acceleration of the process. He's talking about that the first thing that compute can be used for is better and faster AI research. He also related to that in the other interview that I mentioned at the Snowflake keynote, where he was asked if he could have 10x compute, what would he apply it for? And he said, more AI research so we can do more stuff, which is obviously a very interesting answer. But the quote from the blog is, if we can do a decade worth of research in a year or a month, then the rate of progress will obviously be quite different. So if you think the acceleration right now is scary, insane, and nothing we've ever seen before, think about how he thinks. He thinks that every new capability and every new compute and every new breakthrough should be applied first and foremost to more AI research, meaning doing things even faster and being able to do what they're doing in a decade. And he is aiming to take these capabilities and be able to do in 1 month the research in AI that used to take a decade. Just think how reasonable that is, but that's what he's working towards, and he thinks it's achievable. He also connects that to the actual infrastructure. So the next quote is, as data center production becomes automated, the cost of intelligence should eventually converge to near the cost of electricity. Basically, with the advancement in data center creation, with robots in production lines that will be significantly more efficient than they are today, the actual cost of intelligence is going to be, well, very close to zero. So the cost of using the intelligence will be the cost of using the electricity to run the data center. So this means that beyond the algorithms and the capabilities of the AI itself, the whole infrastructure around it is going to become significantly more available, which will enable this to run even faster and do even more things. Now, speaking about data centers and their impact to the world, Sam also shared how much energy and how much water does a single query ChatGPT uses. So the next quote is, the average query uses about 0.34 watt hours, about what an oven would use in a little over 1 second. A high efficiency light bulb will use that in a couple of minutes. Now, he also shared that this one query would use 0.000085 gallons of water, which sounds very, very little. So Sam puts it in the perspective of saying, oh, look how very little resources we're actually using to return a query. But what he is completely ignoring is how much of these actually happen every day. So I did some math and I also did some online research and got to the same conclusion in my math and in the research that as of right now, if they stop growing, they're doing about 1 billion queries per day. So the amount of watt hours and the amount of gallons of water that they're consuming is 85,000 gallons in every single day and 340 million watts. Now, you do that in a month, that's 2,550,000 gallons and 10.2 gigawatt hours. Now, these are really large numbers, but they're very hard to comprehend. So I did some additional research. A typical shower takes about 17 gallons. So 2.5 million gallons equals 150,000 showers that ChatGPT is now consuming in a single month. A 10.2 gigawatt hour can power 11 3,500 average homes in the US. This was not on the grid 2 years ago. These are incredible numbers, and that is while OpenAI is growing at 50% every 4 to 6 months. Now, if you want the even more geeky statistics about the 10.2 gigawatts power, is the DeLorean in Back to the Future took 1.21 gigawatts to travel through time. That means that the amount of power that ChatGPT consumes in a month could send the DeLorean back and forth in time 8.4 times. If that doesn't convince you that is a lot of power that they're consuming, I don't know what will. But putting the DeLorean and the geeky comparisons aside for a second, it means that these tools are consuming a huge amount of power and a stupid amount of water. And we were just talking about ChatGPT. There's obviously a lot of other tools out there that combined are actually using more power and more water than ChatGPT alone. They're obviously the biggest, but the combination of all of them is ridiculous, and we need to take that into account. And yes, if Sam is right and AI will allow us to figure out a way to create clean energy and as much as we want with fusion or any other solution, then there's no problem. But in the transition period, we're going to generate a ridiculous amount of carbon footprint on the planet and use a lot of other resources like water and other stuff. And that's definitely not a good thing. I have a special and exciting announcement to make, especially for those of you who love this show and has been following it for a while. On Tuesday, June 17th, we're going to do a live session of this show celebrating episode 200. Yes, I know, crazy, insane. Episode 200 of this episode. The episode is going to be the ultimate AI showdown. I collected 4 of the top AI experts in the world today. Each is an expert in a specific field, and each of them is going to compare the top current tools and show you the pros and cons on each tool and which use cases to use which tools. This is one of the biggest problems that people have today. And we thought that episode 200 would be a great opportunity to show you how to solve that. So episode 200 live noon Eastern on Tuesday, the 17th. There's going to be a link on the show notes to come and join us. Don't miss this. It's going to be epic. You're going to learn a lot. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to announce a bunch of new things. So if you're not driving, stop right now, click on the link, sign up for the event, come join us on Zoom or on LinkedIn Live. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And now back to the news. Quote number 8, people have long-term important and curious advantage over AI. We are hardwired to care about other people and what they think and do, and we don't care very much about machines. What he's claiming, I think, is that we will endure whatever happens with the AI because we don't really care about the AI, we care about each other. And I really hope that he's right, but we will see in the next segment about OpenAI, somebody else from OpenAI sharing about the emotional connections that humans are now generating with AI, and you will see that this statement may not be that accurate. The next quote is more specifically about job creation. And Sam said, if history is any guide, we will figure out new things to do and new things to want and assimilate new tools quickly. He's basically referring to previous revolutions and how humans did not become irrelevant, but we evolved and found new things to do. Again, I really hope he's right, but I think there is some broken assumption in this process. In every previous revolution that we had, what humans did is moved further and further away from manual labor and more into using our brains in order to achieve more. So our intelligence was the resource that allowed us to evolve beyond what the revolution was trying to solve. If you think about the Industrial Revolution, it's taking machines to do the thing that humans did, and we just operated the machine so we can do more stuff. If you think about electricity, well, electricity allows us to do a lot more things, and again, reduce the amount of labor we needed to do. If you think about the computer era, then computers allowed us to design and do things that took us manual work before that now we could do quicker. But again, it was all enabling our intelligence to be used in a better way. What we are replacing right now is our intelligence. So the only thing we have left above the machines, presumably, is emotions. And he referred to that, as I mentioned in the previous component. How is that going to play out? I really don't know, but I think comparing this revolution to previous revolutions has a very false assumption as the very core part of what it assumes, because intelligence was the thing that got us through, and that's not going to be our benefit anymore. Quote number 9 is something I'm going to talk about a lot with other statements moving forward in this segment. And the quote is, the sooner the world can start a conversation about what these board bounds are and how to define collective alignment, the better. He specifically talks about alignment of AI and alignment of AI specifically to human shared values. And I have several issues with all of that. One, him and a lot of other leaders are saying someone should finally do this. People should pay attention. The world should come together. But what are they doing in order to make this happen? Did Sam initiate an international body? Did he start a collaboration with the other leading labs? Did he do any? No, he's just basically saying somebody needs to finally do this or it's going to be too late. Now, even the stuff that they're doing internally, let's say they're doing the perfect work, that doesn't mean anything about all the other labs. That doesn't mean anything about the open source world. That doesn't mean anything about how this overall going to turn out when it comes to alignment or the negative impacts that AI can have on humanity, society, workforce, etc. And it's just amazing to me that all these leaders, and again, we're going to mention a few others later on in this segment, are saying that somebody should finally do this, but they are not doing much to do the broader thing other than the things they're doing within their company. And the last quote, which I really like because it puts it all together, he said, intelligence too cheap to meter is well within grasp. He is basically saying that ASI, artificial super intelligence, that is going to be free practically, is within reach. It's something that he sees as a practical situation in the very near future. And if we're looking again at specific timeframes that he gave us, it's sometime between 2026 and the 2030s. In the 2030s, yes, it's a whole decade, but with the rate things are moving right now, and the way he's projecting the trajectory is might come sooner than he even believes. So now I want to connect this to a few additional things he said in the keynote session at the Snowflake event. The moderator asked, what is your advice for enterprise leaders navigating the AI landscape in 2025? So Sam said, just do it. There is still a lot of hesitancy. And then he continued and said, the companies that have the quickest iteration speed to make the cost of making mistakes the lowest win. What he means is that applying AI right now with all your might and knowing that it's still not going to be perfect is going to be the way to come up on top because you will learn and iterate significantly faster than other companies. In my courses and when I work with companies, I have the 5 laws of success in the AI era. One of those laws is called the law of continuously improving compromise. What I mean by that law is, yes, AI is not perfect, but it's getting better and better very, very fast. And if you learn how to apply it and if you learn how to iterate through the improvements, you can gain significant benefits both in the short and long run. And so I agree with Sam on that 100%. By the way, the same question was asked to the CEO of Snowflake of what do enterprises and companies need to do in the next 12 months. And he said, curiosity, not caution, is the more valuable trait right now. And I agree with him as well on that. We have the ability to experiment. We need to do it safely. We need to find the right infrastructure and the right security measures to do that. But being able to experiment and base your innovation on curiosity and put that in the hands of every employee in the business is explosive in its ability to drive growth and efficiencies. And if you haven't experienced that, you need to find ways to do that and give that to your company. More about that later. Now, going back to Sam's quotes, one of the following questions was, what will be different next year? And Sam said the following, and I think we'll be at the point next year where you can not only use systems to automate some business processes or build these new products or services, but you can really say, I have this hugely important problem in my business. I will throw a ton of compute at it, and the models will be able to go figure out things that teams of people on their own can't do. And the companies that have experience with these models are well positioned for the world where they can say, okay, AI system, go redo my most critical project, and here's a ton of computing. People who are ready for that, I think, will have another big step change next year. So what is Sam basically saying? He's saying that, again, building those muscles of using AI systems will go far beyond automation and efficiency. They will be able to dramatically change businesses, solve the biggest problems, the biggest bottlenecks that companies have in AI solving the problem for them if they can afford to pay the bill. And obviously, that will be relative to the size of your company. If you have a $10 billion company, you may invest $50 million in compute. And if you have a $10 million company, you may invest $200,000 in compute. But one way or the other, it will allow you to solve problems way bigger than you can solve right now with your current team, especially with the amount of other stuff that the team has to do. So before I summarize this section, I want to go to some additional points from other sources. Inc.com shared a very interesting article on the impact of AI on the consulting world. So McKinsey reported that AI can boost the productivity of a consultant 10x, automating tasks like data analysis, report generation, and so on. That's from a study that they've done in 2025. So it's a very recent study. And this obviously threatens the whole concept of how consulting companies work. Now, in addition to the fact that it enables the consultants to do the work at 10x the efficiency, it also allows non-consultants, meaning the companies themselves, to build workflows, strategies, analysis capabilities, reducing the dependency on consulting firms. Now, in this report that is based on interviews from Fortune 1000 company, he's basically saying that CEOs want insights yesterday, not in 6 months. So any of you had the opportunity to work with large consulting firms, it's a very long and very expensive process that can end in months and sometimes years and will cost you millions of dollars. And AI can now do some of those things in minutes or days. This explains why, per a Deloitte report again from this year, 80% of top consulting firms are investing heavily in AI training for their employees because they understand that they will become obsolete if they don't do that, and they might happen even if they do that. Now, while this report was specifically about consulting companies, I said multiple times on this podcast that it goes way beyond consulting. It goes to anything that is based on billable hours. The concept of billable hours is going to crumble in the AI future. The biggest risk, I think, is law firms. In a year or two, especially if you're looking at what Sam said, AI will be able to do most or maybe all of paralegal work. In an average law firm, 30 to 40% of billable hours come from paralegals. What if in 2 to 3 years, nobody will be willing to pay you for those hours? Can a large law firm survive and maintain fancy offices in a high rise in downtown if they lose 30 to 40% of their revenue? The answer is probably not. What does that mean? It means that companies who are basing their income on billable hours have to find and shift different ways to run their businesses. That's a completely mind shift from a standard operation procedure for many companies and many industries around the world for decades. And from that to another point, Palantir CEO Alex Karp warns that AI is already reducing entry-level jobs and opportunities, potentially creating significant social disruption if not addressed quickly. And Karp also warns that we have to work very, very hard for this to happen. He used the terms, we have to will it to be, because he's saying if we don't do that, there's going to be some significant negative impact to society. And he's saying that the leaders of the tech world are ignoring this right now. His specific quote was, "Those of us in tech cannot have a thin ear to what this is going to mean for the average person." Just 2 weeks ago, we heard the same exact thing from Dario Amodei, right? That said that AI is going to take away a lot of entry jobs. The problem that I have with all of these, and I mentioned that earlier in this episode, is that all of these people are saying someone should do something about it, but they're not doing anything themselves. They're raising the flag, which I think is very, very important because they did not do that before. I did that. I was shouting it off the balconies of this podcast for over 2 years now. But the reality is the people at the helm are going faster and faster, and they're not stopping for a minute to get all of them together and to do something together, other than saying that somebody should do something about it. And that is very scary to me. So, final point before I summarize this whole initial long section of the podcast today. In the recent report by PwC called the PwC 2025 Global AI Jobs Barometer, they found some shocking statistics that employees who have higher AI skills make 56% higher wages compared to their peers with no AI skills in the same roles. That doubled from last year premium of 25% of people with high AI skills. The other thing that they found is that industries that are most exposed to AI saw 3x higher growth revenue per employee compared to those that are less exposed, meaning AI is driving actual real benefits, financial benefits to companies, and the more exposed, meaning industries in which AI can be used more effectively, are seeing 3x the improvement versus industries where AI can be applied less. And the last piece of information from this that I think is fascinating is that skills sought by employers are changing by 66% faster in the most exposed industries to AI, meaning the things that you're going to get hired for is changing dramatically in industries that are exposed to AI. Yes, there are industries that are going to move slower, that are going to be more protected, but in more and more industries, and if you connect that to what Sam said about where AI is going in the next year, you'll understand there's going to be very few industries that are going to get protected from AI. You need AI skills in order to survive. So what does all of this mean? It means that the pace that we're seeing right now, that is staggering and scary, is not slowing down. It's actually accelerating. Sam is saying that very clearly. It also shows that AI training and AI knowledge is the key to success, both on the personal level and on the company level. As an individual, if you want to keep your job, having significant AI skills doesn't guarantee anything because things are going to happen that are beyond our control, but it dramatically increases your chances of keeping your job. It also dramatically increases your chances of finding another job because many companies will hire based on AI skills and not necessarily based on a degree in a specific area. And in the meanwhile, you can make more money, actually a lot more money, 56% more money than people in your position that do not have AI skills. Now, the same thing is true for companies. Companies need to make drastic changes in the way they train their employees to have immediate benefits from AI. That's both on the strategic aspect as well as on the tactical day-to-day aspect. And again, connecting this to what Sam Altman said about what's coming in the near future, knowing now how to use AI with the current levels of AI will also prepare you to use AI next year, again, not in 5 years, next year to do significantly bigger and more strategic things. And I'm going to use this for a shameless plug. We have been delivering AI training to individuals and to companies for over 2 years. My background as a CEO of companies and startups, one of them that has grown to $100 million in sales in just a few years, gives me a great insight to what is working and not working in companies and for individuals right now. We have public courses that you can sign up to, the AI Business Transformation course that we have been teaching for over 2 years now. Thousands of people have taken the course and have transformed their careers and their businesses because of that information. The next public course starts on August 11th. And if you follow the link on the show notes or go to the Multiply AI website, you'll be able to sign up for the course. If you haven't done anything like this for yourself, do it because it can dramatically impact your career and your financial livelihood. But in addition, we've been teaching regular workshops specifically tailored to companies. These workshops vary in size and intensity, and as I mentioned, custom to the specific needs of specific companies. I've been teaching these workshops to companies as small as $5 to $10 million in revenue, and my largest client is a $5 billion international corporation, and everything in between. These workshops become accelerators for AI adoption in the companies, and they support the leadership on the strategy side and how to create the right environment for AI to thrive safely as part of the organization's way forward. And it also allows employees to benefit from immediate skills on the tactical level to help them do their day-to-day job faster, better, and cheaper. If that's something you're interested in, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I will gladly talk to you, share with you exactly what we do and the successes that we had with a huge range of companies. And now to the next topic, still from OpenAI, but in this case on a post on the OpenAI developer community by Joanne Zhang, who is the head of model and behavior policy at OpenAI. And the post is titled, Some Thoughts About Human AI Relationships. So Zhang said, lately, more and more people have been telling us that talking to ChatGPT feels like talking to someone. They thank it, confide with it, and some even describe it as alive. Now, in a combined research that was done by OpenAI together with the MIT Media Lab, they found that more and more users are forming emotional bonds with ChatGPT and most likely other similar AI platforms. Now, OpenAI, per their claim, are trying to make ChatGPT to be, and I'm quoting, warm, thoughtful, and helpful, which Sounds awesome, but it is exactly the kind of behavior that will cause people to develop emotional dependency and connection to these models. But let's say even this is the best case of dependency. What happens with the other labs? Who promises us and who the hell decides what kind of emotional connection should the AI be able to develop with humans? It literally impacts the lives of people and how they feel, not just their jobs and their financial livelihood. And somebody in a leadership position in a lab is going to decide that for you and for your kids. And we're going to talk more about that later on when we talk about some cases with Meta that happened recently and how terribly wrong this can evolve. Now, one of the latest updates that OpenAI did in the past week and a half is that they updated voice mode. Those of you who are not using voice mode, first of all, you should try. It's an amazing way to engage with ChatGPT and other tools as well. I do this every single day, but it's a huge upgrade from the previous version. It feels a lot more human-like. And the studies are showing that some users, particularly the ones that are using voice mode, even more the ones that are using voice mode with the opposite gender, report higher loneliness and dependency after only 4 weeks of using these tools on regular basis. Now, I must admit, all the conversations that I have with ChatGPT are all professional and work related, so I'm probably not in the same bucket as some of these people, but I can definitely see how somebody who's lonely and looking with somebody to talk to or somebody to open their hearts to, and they don't have such a person, will do that with ChatGPT and will develop a connection with it because it's always very understanding and warm and comforting. And that is very, very risky because it's going to drive people to even more loneliness because they will have less and less connections with actual humans. Now, the good news is that OpenAI is recognizing that this is an issue. Again, I'm very happy about that they're openly speaking about this issue. On the other hand, going back to what I said before, what are they actually doing on the bigger picture, not just the OpenAI level, but what are they doing on the bigger picture together with the other labs, together with governments, together with an international body to address this? Well, right now the answer is zero, at least as far as I know. So let's switch to the next deep dive topic, which is Apple. But before we dive into the what I would call embarrassment of AI announcement in their WWDC conference this past week, they released a very interesting research paper just before the conference. So Apple researchers revealed that leading AI models struggle with reasoning, suggesting artificial intelligence, AGI, is still a long way off. Now, the way they did the research is they gave multiple advanced AI tools complex puzzles that humans can actually solve relatively easily, and these models failed miserably with solving these puzzles. So basically, their conclusion was that today's models don't really have intelligence, they just mimic intelligence, and hence they can do the things that they're doing, but they're not on a path to achieving AGI, meaning they're not on a path to being as intelligent as humans across the board on multiple types of tasks. Or as they said, and I'm quoting, fundamental barriers to generalizable reasoning. Now, two things about this thing. First of all, they're not the first people who are saying that. Jan LeCun, the chief AI officer at Meta, has said multiple times that he believes that large language models are not the path to achieving AGI. So that's one. Two is there's a very serious irony in the fact that the company that is currently lagging behind by a big spread behind everybody else on AI, Apple, is the one that is saying that everybody else that has a huge lead on them are on the wrong path, that they're trying to follow and catch up. So some would argue that this paper is just there to maybe explain or justify or maybe reduce the level of impact that the fact that they're so far behind actually has on perception. Either way, as I shared with you, other people do not feel this way. Both Sam Altman, Dario Amodei, and many others definitely see the path to AGI and beyond in the next few years. But that leads us into the WWDC conference that was held this past week. And the one clear winner of the WWDC conference is OpenAI, because Apple is still far from delivering the personal AI-driven Siri that they promised exactly a year ago in the previous conference, that they made a huge hype around marketing these capabilities that they do not actually have, and they're not even close to having. And all they shared, all the big news that they shared about AI are powered by ChatGPT. So features like image generation and screenshot analysis that are now going to be available inside of the Apple ecosystem are actually powered by OpenAI and not by anything that Apple has developed themselves. They have stated that the next Siri has been pushed to 2026, which is a full year, and we don't know when in 2026. So this could be early 2026, which would be 7 to 8 months from now, but this could be late 2026, which will be maybe a year and a half from now. Either way, they're very, very far behind. And if you think about what is happening right now, Google Gemini already powers most or all of Android's phone stuff. They are forcing people to switch from the old Google Assistant to Gemini powering the phones. So they already have millions of phones operating with this new capability. I think most people are not aware of how much they can do with Gemini on their phones, but they will find out definitely in the next few months, definitely before a year to a year and a half from now. Combine that with the fact that Meta Ray-Bans have already sold over 2 million units. Combine that with the fact that OpenAI has just acquired Johnny Ive and his startup, and they're going to develop devices that are going to run ChatGPT, that are going to be probably some kind of a wearable device. And you understand that Apple is in a very serious situation right now. Apple stock has dropped 20% from the beginning of the year. Now, while the decline in the first 4 months were more or less aligned with the S&P 500 overall and had to do a lot with the tax war between Trump and the world, the S&P 500 has recovered and it's now at a higher level than the beginning of the year, and Apple stock is 20% down. Now, while Apple is saying that they are trying to deliver something that will be aligned with their values and their level that they're expecting from their products to have, and they have all these reasons why they're delaying the deployment, it's nothing short of embarrassing that they're so far behind. And the fact that they will release it in 2026 raises the question of what exactly will they release in 2026? Will it be something like the current Gemini or ChatGPT? Because by then, ChatGPT and Gemini will be in a completely different scenario. Think about what I shared with you about what Sam said in the beginning of this episode. They will be able to solve very serious company-wide problems, make novel discoveries with AI, and Apple will have a more advanced Siri. Still not a very good situation for Apple to have. Now, yes, they've launched a lot of other stuff and they have liquid glass redesign that looks really, really cool, and some new features and an overall new phone interface that puts the screen and the contacts and the calls and the voicemail into a one single scrolling environment, and improvements to messages and some new gaming capabilities to Provision and Apple TV personalization, a lot of other stuff that they announced. But the reality is the whole world right now is focused on AI and its capabilities, and Apple has nothing to offer at this point for the company that has been maybe the most innovative company in the computer world for the past 2 decades. That is a very serious situation. Now, you want to take it even further. The Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals denied Apple's request to stop the motion to force the company to immediately stop charging fees on in-app payments made outside the App Store. So far, Apple collects 12 to 27% commission on external transactions not happening within the App Store, but happening in apps after people install them. And that makes Apple billions every single year. And this is a part of an injunction in the Epic Games versus Apple antitrust case from 2021. So they're obviously going to continue to appeal this. But this shows you that beyond the lack of innovation and AI issues, they have some other big clouds and some heavy rains coming that they need to deal with. That's it for the deep dive, and now we have a lot of rapid fire items to talk about, including some huge announcements from OpenAI. So don't miss the next video where we're going to dive into all the rapid fire items that happened this week.